All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining. It's great to see some new and old faces here. I really appreciate you guys taking your time out of your day to join us. I'm Ian Burkhart. I'm the current president of NASCIC, and I would like to welcome you all to our SCI Connections here, which is our quarterly webinar series. As we do every year, the one that's in the fourth quarter is a look back on the year of NASCIC and what all we've been able to do, as well as a look forward as to what we are aiming to accomplish in 2026. So our next slide is the agenda. We'll go through a little bit of some membership and activities. I'll hand it over to Barry, our treasurer, for a financial overview. He will also give a little bit of an update on our SCI Research Advocacy course. Then I will share with Jared, our current VP, to discuss some of the projects and engagement services that we've been doing. And then I'll pull it back to myself to talk about the SCI Powered Network, which is one of our projects, and then our election results for the officers and for the Executive Council, and then push it over to Jared for what to expect. So with that, our membership has grown since 2018. You can see we've had pretty stable growth throughout the years, the 7 years that NASCIC has been around. It's fantastic to see that we're still continuing to reach more and more people. Um, as of our latest numbers, we have about 703 members. And so that represents all of our three kind of classes of memberships with our principal, patron, and partner members. So individuals living with spinal cord injury or their caregivers, as well as academic institutions and institutions that represent individuals living with spinal cord injury, and then industry partners who are working in the space. Next slide are the activities that we accomplished within 2025. First, you may have noticed that we have a new website. We got a little bit of a facelift. It's been still a little bit of a work in process as well as we've been making sure that we're able to keep all of our resources easily accessible and making sure that things don't get lost within the different pages, and just making sure that everything is functioning in a nice and secure manner. We continued with our partnered projects and engagement services. We also continued with the dissemination and outreach of our research advocacy course, which Barry will talk on a little bit later. And we completed the first phase of a project that we're calling the SCI Powered Network. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail here a little bit later. Um, Also, we've continued our community education. We've had our quarterly webinars that we've done. We had our first one, which was all about the CDMRP SCIRP program, so spinal cord injury uh, research program. And that was slated to go in March, and then we heard the news that that program got cut by the federal government. So that conversation was pretty timely and very interesting as to what is important to us in the community, and making sure that we're able to get research done in a way that supports us and what we as individuals living with spinal cord injury can really be looking forward to. We had another one that was all about understanding caregivers' unmet needs and resources. The folks at the Kessler Foundation had a fantastic program to help support caregivers. As we know, caregivers can be very influential and important for individuals with spinal cord injury. And then in quarter three, we did a overview of some different conferences and highlights of what is new, after we attended a few conferences, to be able to share some of that information back to you all, because we know it can be challenging to get out to different conferences. We also had a sponsored series of webinars. Um, as you can see on the screen there, we did 5 of those. One on fertility and catheterization. We had one about incontinence management, another one on bowels, one on FES therapy, and then another one on microcurrent stimulation. So a way to help manage pain for individuals with spinal cord injury. And so those were a great way for us to work with some of our partners in the industry space and share that information out with the community. Additionally, we have some other partners that did not host webinars, but we want to acknowledge all their support. As you can see on screen, there's quite a few organizations that help keep the beast of NASCIC moving, and so it's really great to be able to continue to work with this. Um, Next slide is the highlights the 2 conferences that we were at this year. So we went to the Paralyzed Veterans of America Healthcare Summit, which was in August. And then also we had representation at the Academy of Spinal Cord Injury Professionals, or ASCIP conference, in September. There we were able to share some of the projects that we had going on within the Powered Network and our research advocacy course, as well as just the overall research engagement that we're able to provide, and really was able to meet some new people face to face and do a lot more there that is a little bit harder to do virtually. So that was a little bit of a speed round. We will have time for questions later, but I want to pass it over to Barry, who can give us a little bit of an update, finances of our organization.
Thanks, Ian. As you can see, we've been a little bit busy this year, and to do that, we have to drive it with the financial engine that we have. And I'm very proud to say that we've done remarkably pretty good this year. And the last couple of years, we're in that gap period where we're between grants. And for some of you that may not know this, when you're currently within a grant, there's at some point you have to take some time off before you can apply for another grant, and they can't really cross over each other. So, and that's what some of our bigger granting agencies like Reeve, PVA, and Craig Nielsen Foundation. But this year, we're very fortunate that you see the grants there. We had for the SCI Power Network a renewal of a grant, so it's $100,000 came in November, and that is sitting on the books really to be spent in 2026. We're very fortunate to have fee for service really carry the day this year, and I thanks to Jen French, Ian, and Jared for the work that they did in the fee for service and consulting with industry and helping them move down the clinical road and getting their products to market. So we're very fortunate there, and partnerships and sponsorships. We maintained a pretty healthy engagement with the different sponsors out there, and I want to thank Court for the work that he did in securing those. And so that's where our income came from this year. And as you can see too, this is the expenses are somewhat in line with what we normally do. Really the consulting part really covers some of the honorariums and the work that people do on the fee for service side. We have invested more into web development this year and looking forward to probably even spending more in the new year with the rebuild. But really it's more about how we're going to access and getting our word out and dissemination more so. And we've been very fortunate working with Josh Cohen, who is a friend of Jared's, who's really stepped up and donated a lot of his time to do all this. But as far as the expenses go, they're pretty much in line with what we put in our budget. So we're looking pretty good and healthy going into the new year. I'm willing to take any questions right now, if there are any from the audience about our finances. All right. And with that said, we'll move now into the research advocacy course. As you know, it was a very big, massive project that we took on a few years ago, and it's still moving along, but we haven't stopped thinking of how to really revamp or make change. And what we have Right now, currently, we have 664 users. That means there are people that have registered that are in the progress of taking the course or might need a little nudge, and we've done that over the years. And with 206 graduates, and I think it's safe to say that the majority of the graduates, it's almost a 50-50 split actually between people with lived experience and really young researchers that are taking it on, which is great. Great to see in terms of the partnership and the engagement and bringing a new generation of researchers who really see the worthiness of having people with spinal cord injuries directly involved in their research and helping them become better researchers. So we're fortunate to have that change a bit of the culture as well as having people better understand people with spinal cord injuries. So as it is right now, it's moving along, but we are looking at another revamp and what we're going to do. Maybe just go to the next slide in terms of really bringing it forward. We initially came out with what they call bundles. We called it Skyrack Lite, where we're trying to condense the course into packages where they didn't have to register for the course itself, but try some modules on certain topics that may prompt them to get more involved. That was brought with mixed success. There was some that did graduate into the course itself, but not that many. We're now even looking at how we can really break it down even more. But right now, when we move the website over, people should know that there was some technical glitches with the program, and we're really looking at a massive maintenance project in terms of putting the course, embedding it in the current website properly so that people don't have any interruptions with their passwords and registering themselves. But right now, people can register. The light versions are still something that has to be uploaded again on the new site. So currently, they're not really available, but that's just a short-term piece there. But more importantly, we're looking at how to even condense it further, and we're partnering with our friends at Unite to Fight Paralysis and looking at their lab rat program as an example where they matchmake and bring people into the labs by partner researchers who want to work with people with lived experience. And that's one example of what we can do. But we're looking at really marketing and maintaining more relationships with the research community and people with lived experience and how we can integrate them into their work going forward. And that'll be a priority of 2026 on that front. And then again, to do that, you really have to disseminate. We have to get the word out there that this course does exist. And so we will be spending more time working with principal members and organizations both north and south of the border, and hoping that we can really get the word out. Now, for those of you that may not know, dissemination is really a difficult thing in our community where there are so many great resources, but people don't know how to access them, or people with those resources do not know how to market them to get to the people. And so we are working, like we said, with Unite to Fight Paralysis, and they're looking at potentially very short teaser type, catchy. I want to almost say TikTok versions of getting people interested in research and steering them towards the great resources that our organizations offer. So that's one way of doing it, but we haven't stopped looking at how dissemination work, and really that goes back to the development of the new website, which was going to really focus on search engine optimization and how we can really get the face of NASCIC out there in the community and with the many resources that we have to offer, including the SCI Research Advocacy course. So stay tuned for that, and that's something to look forward to in 2026. And now I'm passing it over to Jared to talk about project partnerships and engagement services.
All right. Thanks, Barry. Gabby, are you able to all right, we'll start there. So in terms of project partnerships and engagement services, before we engage with or take on a new project or take on facilitating our engagement services crew to impact industry and to impact new product development or clinical trial design, we review all of those projects. And we have a group of up to 10 members, currently at 9, who thoroughly review each one of these projects and come about whether or not we believe that that project is in alignment with what NASCIC is all about, which is impacting collaborative change for care, cure, and policy across the spinal cord injury community. And this group is not, they're all volunteers. And the interesting thing about this is I always learn something new. Every time there's a new project that comes through, I always learn something new. And I think that we all do. And one of the things that makes that available is the fact that everyone is contributing their part. So you might have 7 people who all agree on one particular element, and we're convinced about this project being a good fit. And then one person will say, yeah, but what about this? And oh, we hadn't thought about that. And then that generates a whole new conversation. We're able to provide that information back to the submitter or the company. They take everything under consideration, they change, and then they'll send it back to us. So just like take a moment to recognize the people who are on the project review committee. Jeffra, Ryan, Jeff, Patricia, Jason, Anna, Tim, Mackenzie, and Rob. Thank you for the work that you're continuing to do. And this year we have 2 that rolled off of our project review committee. Claudia, I'm going to botch her last name, Garofalo, and Anita Kaiser. You haven't heard the last of Anita Kaiser yet, but we'll save that for later on in this presentation. But thank you both for your extended years of service. I want to say somewhere around 5 or 6 years for both of them, which is 2 terms. Generally, we only do a single term, but they were willing to stay on in the past to fill a need and to continue adding their contribution to our organization. So thank you. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our performance. So in 2024, you can see that the research recruitment requests and projects that we approved was pretty consistent from 24 to 2025 in terms of letters of support. There is a significant decrease. So I would expect there could be a decrease in projects for 2026. The bulk of that decrease, I would say, was as a result of the Department of Defense spinal cord injury research program being cut. That was a $40 million research investment that was government funded that was cut at the beginning of this year. And so having said that, we didn't have as many letters of support coming in. And this year, if you would like to participate, we would love to have you, love to see you there. The Unite to Fight Paralysis organization is having their annual symposium in Washington, D.C. this year in February. And at the conclusion of that's where a lot of research gets disseminated and discussed and lectured, and we get to see what the latest and greatest research in spinal cord injury is over the course of the last year or so. And it's, of all the conferences we go to, it's the largest turnout of people living with spinal cord injury. So it's a great opportunity to network, to get familiar with our community, and to acknowledge each other for the work that's gotten accomplished. And then on the 17th, they'll be following the symposium, we're going to go onto Capitol Hill and jockey for, advocate for getting that funding reinstated for the Department of Defense. So hope to see you there. Next slide, please. So the NASCIC project engagement database, and you can QR code this, or you can find this on our website, is an opportunity for you to participate. Opportunity for you to participate in research, As we take in these projects and approve them, we then disseminate recruitment requests to our community. And this is one way to get involved and to make a difference. Thank you for all of those who are part of our database, for filling out those surveys, and for joining different community advisory boards. It does make a difference. And Gabby also posted that link in the chat. Thank you. All right, I'll turn it back over to Ian.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. And yeah, I want to highlight that our project engagement database is really what keeps the machine of NASCIC moving. Without all you members that are in that database, we want to be able to, then connect with the researchers and be able to match people to work on different projects. So it's fantastic to have you there. So as mentioned previously by myself, and then also Barry mentioned it a little bit within his, we have this project called the SCI Powered Network. Phase 1 has been completed, and we got awarded a grant for phase 2. That's why it looks like we made a lot of money this year, but we got paid for the grant this year, and all the expenses will come out of it next year. But that project for the phase 1 first was a comprehensive survey where we were able to gather 448 respondents of individuals living with spinal cord injury or caregivers, family members, etc., to assess their information needs and how they're able to get the information that they need when they need it and where they need it. So we were able to see that over 83% have difficulty in accessing SCI health information. This boiled down into some attributes and criteria that we created that focused on the credibility, trustworthiness, accessibility, and relevance of information so that individuals are able to identify trusted SCI health information when they need it. Additionally, we helped develop a comprehensive framework with 64 different health conditions that were cataloged, categorized, and tagged as a way to help feed what we're going to add into a AI system that can help improve the information dissemination. So with that, we're going to be able to use lived experience human reviewers alongside the AI tools to really make something that can allow people to access the information that they need when they need it. Next slide, we have developed a few infographics that talk about the results of the survey. These are available on our website, so that way you can actually see them, because I'm sure a lot of that text is very small on your screen. But it overall shows, what type of people we're able to reach, what kind of issues they have with information, and how this is going to be a problem. In the future, as more and more people are looking for information. This stemmed really out of the sheer fact that inpatient rehabilitation stays are getting shorter and shorter, and people who aren't connected have a hard time finding information. And then just the vast knowledge of information out there, it can feel like you're drinking water through a fire hose, and it can be very challenging. So what can we do to be able to create something that people can use to find trusted information sources when they need it, where they need it, and how they need it? This is something, though, that we didn't do alone. We had a working group full of members. Gabby, if you can go to the next screen, thank you. So I want to thank all these folks here that were on the working group. Rebecca, Kim, Spring, Lindsay, Kim, Angela, Sarah, Peter, Matthew, Jake, Matthew, Jose, Bill, and Kim Mondin. And that project was led by both myself and Jen French. So I really want to thank all of them for participating in this project. And that's something that we're really excited on working on that next phase of it next year. And we'll hear a little bit more about that later on in what to expect in the new year. But next, I want to go through our elections results. So every year, NASCIC has an election in the fall. It opens right around Canadian Thanksgiving and closes right around American Thanksgiving. And, depending upon the year, we can have multiple spots, one spot, etc. Um, but before I get into who was elected, I want to first thank the people who are rotating off of our executive council. So we have Jen French, who is our past president, who will be rotating off the executive council. And then we also have Matt Castelluccio and Jane Werbecki, who were members of our executive council that will be rotating off this period. This is another one of those cycles where we have a president change. So if you're unfamiliar with the organizational structure NASCIC has, you get elected into the vice president role. You're there for 2 years, then you go to president role for 2 years, and then you go to the past president role where you serve on the executive council for 2 more years. So Jen is rolling off of that. I will be stepping into the past president role. Jared will be taking my place. And if we go to the next slide, I'm thrilled to announce that Anita Kaiser will be our next vice president, as well as having a new delegate for our executive council, Jeff Weldon. Both are not strangers to the organization, have served on the PRC for many, many years. So it's fantastic to have them taking, that next step in responsibility and continuing to oh, I love some of those clapping hands. Thank you. But really being able to help the next generation of NASCIC lead and grow. So if we go to our next slide, we can see the makeup of our executive council. Like I mentioned, Jared Kerr will be stepping into the president role. Anita will be the vice president. Barry is maintaining as the treasurer for this time. And then Sam Troyer, Jeff Weldon are our delegates, and then myself as the past president on the EC. So we can go into what we have as far as some of our leadership changes as well. We have our executive council, and then we have the officers of NASCIC. And so we want to thanks Jen for all her help and support over the years as a founding member. Jen led this organization into places that I didn't imagine, and she was a great mentor. And I'm glad that she's not going too far away, because we'll probably lean on her quite a bit, and she still helps with some of our engagement services work. As I mentioned, Jared's going to be the president, Anita's the vice president, Barry's the treasurer and past president. And then we also have an interim executive director that we're hoping to continue on with, and that's Gabby Ocampo. She's been working with us for a while, started working up with us quite a few years ago on some of the SCI research advocacy coursework. And so that is your kind of leadership team and changes for this coming year. So with that, I will hand it back over to Jared.
All right. So thank you, Ian. Oh my, I've had the privilege to work with Ian every week over the last 2 years, and he has continued to put in more effort and take on more responsibility and shoulder the buck stops here mentality, where a lot of things, Ian, that clearly are not your quote fault, so to speak, but you take the responsibility for it. And so you've been a great demonstration, not only to me in leading this organization, but also for all of us in your willingness to do that and to do it with a cool attitude about yourself. So I'll do my best to fill your shoes. Yeah, I can't, well, on behalf of all of NASCIC, thank you. And so I'd also like to just reiterate some of the stuff that that Ian said about the past leadership and how this organization was born. And we sit on the shoulders of giants here, and this organization was born out of a meeting for how do we improve the quality of lives for people living with spinal cord injury, and what are identifying the gaps, particularly inside of research, and what that meeting entailed that came out. You can go to the next slide, Gabby. What that meeting entailed was that that the lived experience of our community was missing in research and in other areas, but research mainly around advocacy research and um, clinical trial research. Um, and out of that meeting, what was seen was that we should take this on. We could take this on. And the mission of bringing about collaborative change, working across the aisle with different stakeholders. And in order to do that, there really is a certain skill set that comes along with that. And I think we all have it. And that is, you have a need about your body that needs to get met. And you've learned through having a spinal cord injury different ways to get that done, how to communicate effectively, um, and not without failure, right? We've all had plenty of failures where we've probably ticked people off and said the wrong thing or said it in an aggressive way or in a way that didn't communicate exactly what we needed to get done in a way that empowered the people that we were talking to get it done. And the organization and the leadership that we get to inherit now uh, really had a bunch of leaders who were really good at communicating to everyone, from Kim Anderson, who's on this call, and Jen French, and many of the originators of that initial meeting, Rob. Um, and so, thank you to all of you who've made that possible, who've made this organization possible. It's important, I think, to acknowledge as we hear at the end of the year what has been accomplished. It's real easy to say, yeah, we got that done, and then move on to the next thing, and not really take a moment to claim the ground that has been taken so that now we can stand on a higher ground, stand on a higher level. Now that we have those things accomplished, we get to act from that place. So a little bit about what's ahead in 2026. As Ian pointed out, the SCI Powered Network is a 2-year grant from the Craig H. Nielsen. So we'll be embarking on that second year of that grant. And inside of this year, we will be disseminating the findings from the phase 1 study. And that study was conducted to really get at the information needs of those living with spinal cord injury. And getting that information, oftentimes you see it in the news mostly. It's the easiest one to use as an example that the most important thing is walking, right? And if you listen to the news, the most important thing is walking. And while walking is important, many of us, it might be the most important thing to the person listening to this call. But as a community, that's not the top priority. And so what are those top priorities, right? And so as I'm sure you all know, you look at hand function and uh, um, pain management, bowel function, bladder function, sexual function. These are the things that generally are always at the top of the priority that SCI professionals don't know necessarily, that healthcare providers don't know, and the people who are making those policies uh, uh, don't know. So the goal, one of the goals, is to disseminate that information out into the hands of the people who are making those decisions. Second part of that phase is the seal of approval framework that Ian already spoke about, and testing that framework, refining it through pilot programs. But essentially, what that seal of approval is targeted to do is to get information that is credible, trustworthy, accessible, and relevant to our needs. And then thirdly, well, okay, that's all well and great, but how do we put that into practice? Well, and how do we measure that we're getting our job done, that we're fulfilling on the grant? Well, one way is to have 5 partner organizations be implementing this protocol. And, this might be a partner like Christopher Reeve Foundation or United Spinal, just to name, a couple. So we want to see this get out into the hands of the community, of our partners. We're all about disseminating information in a collaborative way. And it's not about credit. It's about development. It's about getting it out there to the people who need it. Next slide, please. So another goal for 2026 is our PFDD initiative, patient-focused drug development initiative, where we are, and it's there's different patient-focused drug development meetings that occur, some that are sponsored specifically by the FDA, and then there's others that are externally led with the FDA, and that's what we're embarking on. And there's a considerable amount of cost associated with that, and a considerable amount of time associated with having this meeting. And I'd like to thank the people who have contributed already, the sponsors that have contributed already to make that possible, and the grants that will be forthcoming to make this happen. But one of the things that happens in this production is that we get up under and get clear about what actually matters most to people with a spinal cord injury, and we use it's basically scours through the gray literature, the quote gray literature, which is the things that we all know that are obvious. Like when I tell you, the people here, about what the needs are of spinal cord injury, you go, yeah, we know. We've been knowing these things, right? But the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know that. It hasn't necessarily been produced in literature, some literature, but not all of it. So the creation of a patient dossier will get that information, that quote gray literature, to scour all the different ways of doing that on the internet, and dig under real life stories and get symptoms that impact the quality of our daily life, identifying treatment gaps, what the emotional toll is of having a spinal cord injury, and ultimately the quality of life struggles that we go through. And the idea is to ensure that treatments align with the top priorities of people living with a spinal cord injury. So that's really the basis of this project, and we're making progress there. And so once all of that meeting is borne out, then we will disseminate the findings from that project. So that's what we got to look forward to, among many other things, but those are the main two projects that we're looking at.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Gabby, if you can actually go back on one slide, I just want to echo a little bit on what this PFDD initiative is. And, it's something where we are working alongside the FDA so that way they understand what, like Jared said, what matters to the community when they're trying to approve or not approve a drug. Also, PFDD is drug development, but as the FDA knows, and we all know, there's a lot of devices that can help individuals with spinal cord injury as well. So there'll be colleagues from that department of the FDA at this meeting as well. We're aiming for that meeting to be held in September. It's going to be a all virtual meeting, so no one has to travel. But the result of that is this voice of the patient report that the FDA calls it, that can be extremely invaluable for any pharma, biotech, or device company to, be a little bit of a playbook of what they need to accomplish out of their therapeutics to help individuals like us. So this is something that is going to be very, very beneficial, and we're really excited to work towards this. It's something that we will, keep everyone in the loop. If you want to, follow along with our newsletters, and please don't hesitate, as always, to reach out to any of us if you have questions directly. We are really excited about this project in particular because it's going to be something that we feel like can really move the needle, as there's, very limited resources for individuals with spinal cord injury that are FDA approved. So next, we do just want to open it up to a lot of discussion and hear from you, our community, how we can better serve you, what you like, what you don't like. We also have a survey that we'll send out that is more in particular about these webinars that we do every quarter, as far as what type of content you all would like to see, how the time and the um, schedule works for everyone, and what we could do to be better um, with these webinars, because we feel like they're great information sources, and we want to make sure that everyone's getting the most out of them as possible. So we'll put a link to that survey in the chat. It's also on the next um, slide, but we want to have this be some time for you all to share what you like, what you don't like. If you feel comfortable, just either raising your hand or taking yourself off mute. Um, please let us know if you have any questions.
Hello.
Hi, Mac.
How we doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, got my Christmas shopping done, I think.
You're ahead
Don't
of
get,
me.
yeah. I went to Walmart. Not because I wanted to, because I can, right? We all understand that?
Yep.
You know, the crazy thing about our injury is here we all are in chairs. We know what we need. We know who we are. And it seems like we're in this constant battle with people who are perfectly healthy, and all they need to do is just listen to us when we say, "This is what I need. This is what I want you to work on." Why do we have this constant battle with the world to get them to focus on what we know we need? How do we do that? Now, I am now on the National Board of Directors with the Paralyzed Veterans of America. I'm very active in a lot of things. I've been on Capitol Hill a couple of times. I've been to a couple of Christopher Reeve summits and on and on. You know, a lot of us are talking right now because of Christopher Reeves and what happened 20 years ago, right? We don't have a Christopher Reeves kind of character out there right now to keep the awareness of who we are in the news, but something just recently happened that we may be able to play off of and get a little attention if you will pay attention. I'm from West Virginia. The two National Guard people that were shot in the head, the girl died. The guy is still alive in Washington, D.C. He's actually woke up. He hasn't talked. Now, I don't know the extent of his injury, but we do know he was shot at point blank range in the head. He has a traumatic brain injury. It was all the news for about 48 hours, and now we're just what, 2 weeks down the road, and it may get mentioned about it on tonight's news. If this kid would pull through a little bit, they're going to be able to step in and maybe we can find out what life saving techniques were used to help this guy get back to some level of society. And this is what, now, this next little piece of this is just what I preach all the time to the world. We live in a day where America and all around the world, our first responders and our life saving techniques when you come across a catastrophic trauma are better than they have ever been. 50 years ago, if I broke my neck 50 years ago, I'd be dead right now. It happened 8 years ago, and they were able to save my life. The thing we all have to fight for right now is that because of life saving techniques, more of us are surviving our injuries and we're living longer. So, in other words, here's medicine and here's the level of people that we have available to take care of us. But over here, we're developing an inventory. The number of us is growing. We have got to fight like hell to not let these people cut funding, cut medical services, and cut research. Period. We have to fight now. And now that we have this example in a hospital somewhere in Washington, D.C., and the world, if that guy gets transferred out of that hospital and sent home, they're going to be there with cameras. It's going to give the disabled, injured, spinal cord, TBI community, all of us, an opportunity to maybe have a voice and to get this at the top of mind awareness again for a little while. And we have to take advantage of it when the opportunity is there. We got to jump all over it because the next day there'll be some new news story and it'll all go away as fast as it appeared. Okay? So let's pay attention. Let's be strong. I admire it when you all talk about tact and this and that. That ain't me. I negotiate like a bowling ball. I'm sick of people sitting on their hands talking about what they're going to do and never do it. We got to push ahead. We've got to get some drastic progress going ASAP. There's no reason to wait 10 and 12 more years for the approval of a drug. I'm a 70-year-old veteran. I volunteer right now. Try me. If I die, I die. I'm willing to die for the cause. Did I say enough?
Yeah, thank you, Mac. I really appreciate it. And it's it's not lost on me. I think we sometimes have this challenge within our community of, you get busy living in your own world as far as what you're trying to do and just trying to meet that kind of your bare necessities of getting things together, getting things, getting caregivers if you need them, getting medical supplies, getting transportation, whatever it is. And it can be hard then to have energy and awareness to advocate. And that's what we're trying to do here. You mentioned on a lot of things that go right in line with some of the projects that we're working on, in particular to help get that voice of individuals with spinal cord injury heard in a way that researchers understand it, industry understands it, and elected officials understand it. So that way, hopefully, we can get SCRP reinstated because that's a project that, a mechanism that was funding a lot of great science. And it was something that, I think is extremely special because they had individuals with lived experience on the review committee. So it was projects that actually made sense on a scientific level, but also on the level of the people who are going to benefit from them or, at least have been in those situations. And so that's something that's really important, as well as our PFDD project that we just talked about quite a bit, where we're able to continue to get the voice of the, lived experience heard. So that way, applications that can be approved are going to be approved by the FDA for something that actually means something for us versus just like, oh, people want to walk or people, what you expect. I mean, I know for me, what before I had my spinal cord injury, I was kind of young, dumb teenager and didn't think anything of it as far as what it would be like to be paralyzed. And so I think it can be challenging, if you're not living it or someone close that is to, really understand that need. But like you said, it's really important to capture on anything that you can to get more people to pay attention to it because once again, there's going to be more and more of us. We're living longer and longer, and it's going to, realistically be a challenge for society if people continue to be in the situations that we're in. So we need to make sure that we're doing something to help move that needle a little bit forward. And we need people like yourself, Mac, that will be that bull in the china shop and be there. As being a veteran, I think it would be really fantastic if you would want to help with the reinstatement of the SCRP program, because there's a lot there, and it's a veteran program, so your voice will ring a little bit louder. If you're interested in that, I can help connect you with some folks who are leading that with the Unite to Fight Paralysis organization. And we're doing that kind of roll on Capitol Hill in February, as Jared mentioned, where a lot of us will be there and trying to get more there. But it's, it takes kind of every different angle and every different play that you can get, because it's not just, the straightforward process of like, oh, you got to go talk to your, representative and then they make something happen. It's, anything that we can do will be helpful. So we really appreciate that.
Right, right. It, Let me have the floor just a few more seconds, if you don't mind. Back about this time, for a year ago, Jennifer French had got in touch with me, and I got to give the sort of the little opening remarks for the CDMRP last January. And I just want to review real quick what I said. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people. Sometimes I'll make an analogy, and I think people understand what I'm talking about. And sometimes maybe what I said wasn't understood. Here's what I said to the CDMRP, and I'm really sad that they lost their funding. But on December 3rd of 1967, this guy named Christian Bernard did the first heart transplant in the world in Cape Town, South Africa. He was from Cape Town. He came to the United States. He went to the University of Minnesota. He got interested in cardiac medicine. He tried to create and do some new procedures, but he could not get FDA approval. He had a student or a patient that he wanted to transplant the heart. The guy was willing to do it. So he flies him to Africa and they set it up. Now imagine you're in Africa, you've left the United States, and this is in 63. We didn't have such good life saving equipment in the United States back then, and you can imagine what it was like in Cape Town, South Africa. Well, anyway, he goes in, he does the first heart transplant. He he had an assistant in surgery with him who had never seen somebody with their chest open before. He had two assistants in there that they were doing a surgery that had never been done before, so it wasn't like the nurse could be handing him the next instrument what he needed before he asked for it. They were literally, he'd ask for a clip or a scissor or a stitch, and it was all totally off the cuff. And his experience up to that point, he had replaced the hearts in two German shepherds. Okay? So they finally had the donor, and they take out the man's heart. They open up the donor to get the heart out. It was a younger girl, and when they got the heart out of her, it was noticeably smaller than the heart they had just taken out of the man. The whole point to the whole story is that sometimes you just have to have the guts to push forward. There is no perfectly safe procedure, and progress is only made when people take a chance. I'm telling you, I know a lot of people like myself that are willing to take the chance to advance the science. And so I think you all get the points. Sometimes courage is what we need. We don't have a health care crisis, we have a health cure crisis. And the only way we're going to make it into this new world is somebody's got to have some guts to take the first steps, collaborate with each other, and probably do some things that require risk. I'm willing to take the risk. Okay, enough said for me. You all have a great Christmas holiday. It's been great talking to you, and I've enjoyed it. I'm muting myself now.
Thanks, Mac. We really appreciate it. Rob, I see you have your hand up though. Would you
Yeah.
like to add something here?
Yeah. And Mac, this goes into a little bit about what you said earlier. I think PVA has some really good recommendations or guidelines that I know clinicians work off of, but that's usually specialized just to spinal cord injury practitioners like PM&R docs and therapists. Um, I think one thing I was kind of hoping to take the charge on, but um, is rural healthcare for spinal cord injury and emergency medicine. And, this is going to require like going outside of ASCIP, going to emergency medical, practitioner conferences and general medicine and sharing our story with them, and more than that too. But I think it would be really awesome to see PVA come up with guidelines for emergency rooms. I know in Canada too, as well as America, the United States, we have a pretty big problem with people that live in rural communities with spinal cord injuries, and you just don't have the transportation to appropriate therapy. You don't have your general practitioner that you would see, is fairly limited by what you get, but having that information about guidelines, how they can treat their patients better, and considerations, I think are kind of the really important things that we need to start looking at. And, in the US, I know telemedicine just took a big hit because they allowed a lot of that stuff for COVID, but that wasn't really a formalized rule. And CMS just pulled back at reimbursement for telemedicine and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Rob. It's it's tough. And that was one of the things we saw in our information needs survey, in particular about kind of the rural communities. And I mean, I live in a big city, and not there's a handful of PM&R docs, but you can't get in to see any of them, and it's really tough on that side too. Um,
Yeah.
Even when you are in an area that's pretty well populated. So, and then you throw in all the other challenges of how are you getting to that appointment, what all you have to do, and everything there. It's important to continue on with some telemedicine resources and things that can be done remotely. I know the VA has been able to continue on with quite a few of those, but a lot of those other ones were cut back, reimbursement wise after the pandemic, and that's been a little bit of a challenge. So these are all great things to hear about, and to see what we're able to do and continue as we move NASCIC forward, how we can have either our own initiatives or something where we're collaborating and working with partners who are kind of strategically placed, to do something a little bit more powerful. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's really fantastic to be able to get this feedback from you all. And if you have more, we put in the chat the contact information link on our website. That way it goes directly to, all the officers. Also, if you, want to reach out to any of us individually, our emails are first initial, last name at nascic.org. Please feel free to reach out. And, we don't want to take up too much time of your day, but we really appreciate you all joining us today, and have a safe and happy holiday season, and a happy new year, and we will see you on the other side.